I'm Jerry Condon. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Veterans for Peace, and along with Greg Corning and Jim Wogemuth, one of the coordinators of our Nuclear Abolition Working Group. We meet monthly on the fourth Friday of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We have a lot of great meetings. We have a lot of great participants who are very knowledgeable and very active on anti-nuclear issues. And sometimes we're lucky enough to have guest speakers at our meetings. And today we have a guest speaker, Timmon Wallis of Warheads to Windmills. I'm going to ask him to share some things with us in a minute. I'll just let you know the rest of the agenda we're looking at. We meet 30 minutes early to some of us do, to put the agenda together. We're also going to hear from Ellen Barfield, who's pressing for the board, the VFP Convention Committee to invite a Shoshone speaker at our convention to feature that. We have some discussion about Trump's recent denuclearization statement and what kind of response we might want to make to that. We have some news about our webinar we're planning with KJ No and Norman Solomon. And then we have our usual check-ins where people share a lot of information. We're going to do that later and ask Timmon Wallis to share with us for the next 20 or 30 minutes. And we can hear from Timmon and have some questions and answers and discussion. Timmon heads up Warheads to Windmills, as you all know, and they are in the middle of a very ambitious full week of action in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure that's primarily what Timmon's going to let us know about. So welcome, Timmon.
Thank you. Should I just jump in?
Please do.
Thanks for having me. Hi to you all. I know quite a few of you, but for those who don't, great to meet you all. As Jerry said, we're sort of halfway through a very busy week in DC, and we're obviously competing with all the other crazy things that are going on in this town. But I wanted to just share our Trump letter that we delivered on Wednesday, the anniversary of the nuclear ban treaty entering into force, the 4th anniversary. Our meetings in Congress and what we're trying to achieve there, our meetings with NGOs in the what do they call the Beltway bandits? You know, the ones that have all the funding, and anyway, we've been trying to meet with them. We're meeting with companies headquarters, and we've got this deterrence summit coming up next week with all the big nuclear weapons companies. Big jamboree that they have once a year. And then if we have time, or you want to talk about the doomsday clock, that's the final thing on our agenda for this week of action. So, but if you want to spend more time on one or the other, I mean, just let me know. But I'll just run through those, starting with Trump, because I mean, and Jerry just mentioned the statement he made at Davos, which I want to come back to. But first of all, I hope you've all seen the letter that was signed. We did get Susan Schnall on the letter at the very last minute, which is great. So thank you for that. But we had 140 organizations sign on to that letter, so we're very happy about that. And it spelt out some reasons why Trump should take the initiative and just get rid of nuclear weapons. And we've been at this for, I mean, I know you've all been at it for much longer, but I mean, certainly since the treaty was signed, we've been at it every year. We got no response from the Biden administration. We've been going to the White House trying to hand in a letter. So we decided just to do it again. We tailored it this time very much to Trump's sort of psychology. I mean, it's all about He could win the Nobel Peace Prize if he wanted to get rid of nuclear weapons. He wants to cut the budget of the federal government, so this is the best way to do that. There's trillions of dollars in there that they could just cut. And, he's asked questions in his last time in the White House, why do we have these weapons if we're not going to use them? So turning that around, I mean, obviously the danger is he thinks we should use them. But on the other hand, the reality is they can't use them in practical terms. And so why should they keep them? So anyway, if you haven't seen the letter, I can put a link or you can look it up. But we had the letter. We had a press release on that. It was very, very cold last Wednesday, as I'm sure you all know, and so we had a very small turnout at the White House. But we did have some channels to try to reach Trump, and so we'll see. I mean, but the interesting thing is that the next day he made this statement at Davos. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen the response from Daryl Kimball of the Arms Control Association, but yeah, I'm sure Alice has seen it.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
I already talked about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what Alice said, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I agree with her that he turned, Trump is talking about eliminating nuclear weapons. Right. And they turn it around and say, let's reduce the numbers and have some arms control treaties and so on. I mean, they missed the point entirely. And so that's our big message. And in terms of like what people can do who aren't in DC right now, the more we can publicize. I mean, whether Trump is being, I mean, you can't say truthful because he not truthful about anything. But I mean, whether he means what he says or even knows what he says, who knows? But this is an opportunity to really support that idea and say, this is time to get rid of these weapons. Never mind about arms control treaties. Let's get rid of them. This is our big chance. So that's our message on that one, really.
And we're gonna actually talk about that again later in the agenda.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure you could do a lot with that because that's a really important development. So that's where we are with Trump, and everything else about Trump is a disaster. But that's one possible positive thing that we can build on. So then we've been spending the last few days in Congress. We first of all, there are 9 newly elected members of Congress who are in the Progressive Caucus. So we were really focusing on them. There's some really good ones. Rep. Simon, who took Barbara Lee's seat, is a very hopeful new addition to Congress. Latifah Simon, but there's some other ones as well. And we just met. By chance we met one in the elevator who's not on the Progressive Caucus. But we had a fantastic conversation just now with his chief of staff, and so that's another hopeful sign. So we've got some new members of Congress. We've lost Barbara Lee. We've lost the guy in New York. I can't remember his name offhand. But anyway, we've lost some, but we've gained some. And we've been spending most of our time in Congress talking to our old friends because we want to really reinforce their support for elimination of nuclear weapons and for the TPNW, for the Norton bill, which I'm sure you all know is the sort of Warheads to Windmills bill. It says sign the nuclear ban treaty, work with the other nuclear armed nations to get rid of these weapons, ratify it once that's already clearly in place, and use all those wasted trillions of dollars and all the human resources and infrastructure to really pull out all the stops for climate and really address the climate crisis and address 2 existential threats to the planet at once. That's our Warheads to Windmills message. So we've been meeting with all those. I mean, our own my own rep is Jim McGovern from Massachusetts, who's one of our big champions, as you probably all know. And so we had a meeting with him, and talked about all kinds of things, which I can go into more if you want. But I mean, one of the things that we're trying to set up right now is Jim McGovern was the only member of Congress who's ever been to any event related to the nuclear ban treaty. He came to the meeting in New York at the UN last year, or a year and a half ago. So we're trying to get some more members of Congress to take the TPNW seriously, the nuclear ban treaty. Maybe come to New York. It's more.
And the states parties meeting is going to be in New York in the first week of March. Is that right?
Yeah, first week of March. Yeah, and they have as part of that meeting, they have what they call the parliamentarians for the TPNW. So countries that are not in the treaty, like us, like Canada, like the UK, France, Australia, they have members of their legislatures who support the treaty. And they get together to talk about how we're going to build support in those countries for eventually signing the treaty. So we've never had a U.S. representative attend those meetings until last year, and we want to keep that going if we can. Jim McGovern cannot come to that one this March because he has commitments on that Monday. That meeting's on Monday, March the 3rd. And we do have a letter campaign. So you were asking what you can do from wherever you are. We have. I'll put the link in the chat if I can just find it. It says, urge your member of Congress to attend the TPNW meeting on the 3rd of March, and I'll put that in here. So you can just click on that and send the letter to your own representatives. The chances of somebody randomly deciding to go there are pretty slim, but it's great for them to hear from you that this is even happening and that you care about it and that you want them to care about it. So, we're trying to get some other reps to go to that meeting. I don't know how many of you are maybe going to the TPNW meeting, but there's normally about 600 ICANN campaigners from around the world who go and lobby the countries there, which we'll be doing again. But the day before the meeting starts, on the Sunday, March the 2nd, there is a big ICANN campaigners meeting, which was going to be this year at Riverside Church in New York City, and there'll be a big, exciting occasion. And we got a space for Jim McGovern to speak at that, but now he can't come. He's going to try to come actually on the Sunday, but we're offering other members of Congress a chance to sort of have a press conference in New York, meet with all the ICANN campaigners. If they can't come on Monday, they could maybe come on Sunday. And the third option we're giving them is that some of the members who won't come to New York might be willing to have a press conference on the steps of the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and to do that in combination with the meeting at the UN. And so we did that 2 years ago when the meeting took place in Vienna, and none of the members of Congress were able to come to Vienna, but we did have a meeting. We had five members of Congress outside the Capitol building, where the press, show them with the Capitol behind them and everything. They spoke, and we had them live streamed to Vienna into the UN building. And it's hugely important for the other countries to see even a single member of the U.S. Congress supporting this treaty, because they don't believe that the U.S. is ever going to do anything. And of course, it's that doesn't mean that we will, but it's very inspiring and encouraging for the rest of the world to see some members of Congress speaking out about abolishing nuclear weapons. And so we'll probably try to do that again, because Jim McGovern at least can't be there on the Monday. And we have a lot of things planned for the TPNW week in New York. But if we can get a room with a big TV screen and get people there to watch the members of the Congress, speaking in support, that would be one great thing. So that's one of the things we've been trying to do. We've got great, apart from Jim McGovern, we have our key allies in Congress, like Ilhan Omar. I don't know how many of you watched the special order hour that took place in November. Several members of Congress spoke. Ilhan Omar wasn't able to speak in person during that thing, but she wrote a statement which she put into the congressional record, and it's by far the best one. So if you're interested, I could maybe circulate that. But she was the only one that really said. I mean, even Jim McGovern wasn't really as outspoken as Ilhan Omar, who just said, like, these weapons have got to go. The world is in danger. We can get rid of these weapons. We've just got to do it. And so she's our big champion. We had a great meeting with her legislative director, who's very, very supportive. And we met with some of the other allies. So we're not just trying to get them to the TPNW meeting, but we're also trying to build out, we know that during the next 2 years, if not 4, nothing can happen in Congress. I mean, the Republicans are in control. They're all over the map, but to have legislation in Congress that we can support and that we can rally around and get people and get other members of Congress to support, that's the way that we have to really increase the general support for the treaty and the abolition of nuclear weapons. So the Norton bill that I mentioned, it was in this last session, HR 2775. I don't know if you all are familiar with it, but it basically says, sign the treaty, work with the other countries, ratify the treaty, and put all that money and so on into climate. And that bill has only had it started with no co-sponsors at all, and we've over the years got up to 12 or so. We want a lot more than that. So we've been negotiating about changing the text from time to time to try to strengthen it and make it more, not weaken it, but strengthen it. And so we've been doing that with Eleanor Holmes Norton, whose bill it is. And we've also asked her if she was willing to file that bill or launch it on March the 3rd, so that we could combine that with a press conference about the TPNW and sort of try to make the most we can out of that. So again, we'll have more information when they finalize the text of the bill, but we've had letter campaigns going on that as well, which I'm sure you've seen or you will see. So you can also write to your member of Congress and say, please support this. Now there is also HRES 77, the Back from the Brink resolution, which has more support. I mean, there's about 45 members of Congress supporting that. We've had, as I said, we met with Jim McGovern because he's our rep, and we've been really pressuring him to strengthen the language of that resolution so that it's more linked with the Norton bill, so that we can go to members of Congress and say, sign this resolution. That's the first step, and then the Norton bill implements that resolution. We want to spell out how what actually has to happen, not just we got to do it. So we're talking to McGovern about the wording, and we're talking to other members of Congress, and we're trying to get the wording to match a little bit more closely with the Norton bill. So that's another one of our goals. Jim McGovern, by the way, offered to do another special order hour, either before or after the meetings in New York, to try to, draw more attention and get more members of Congress to speak about nuclear weapons. It was a bit disappointing, the last one, because a lot of the people who spoke, as I said, apart from Ilhan Omar, were a little bit wishy-washy about actually getting rid of nuclear weapons, which is what we want them to. But anyway, so that's all happening. And of course, because we're the Warheads to Windmills, we're also talking about bills that we want to support, we want to get more support for on the climate side. There's the Earth Bill to address climate pollution. There's the Green New Deal resolution. There's the Fossil Free Finance Act, which would divest the national government from these companies. So we're trying to support those. But we're also in D.C. because all the nuclear weapons companies have their headquarters here. And so we've been having meetings with them. Well, we haven't had any meetings, but we've been trying to deliver letters to these companies. And again, we've got, I don't know if you've all seen on our Warheads to Windmills website. Let me just put that in the chat. But we've got all the main nuclear weapons companies, the CEOs of those companies, and some of the other key staff people, the media, emails. We've got all their emails. We've got the phone numbers of their headquarters. We got their addresses, and we've got letters, templates for letters. You can just click a button and send them a letter to the CEO. And it doesn't always feel like, I mean, not everybody gets a response, but some people do. I mean, we've had correspondence with some of these people in vice presidents of Honeywell, for example, who responded and tried to argue that they don't have anything to do with nuclear weapons, which was, so, again, something you can do from wherever you are is to send a letter to one of these CEOs or more, and tell them that they're violating the nuclear ban treaty and international law. Tell them that you're going to urge everyone to divest from these companies, to refuse to do business with them. We're trying to really build the pressure on these companies, because they're the ones that call the shots in Washington. We can do whatever we want with members of Congress, but the companies are the ones that are really in the way. And that leads me to the Deterrence Summit, which starts on Monday. Our Warheads to Windmills person that we're hiring, Anduin DeVos, who's only 23. Vicky, my wife Vicky, got a press pass to go in for free and watch and see what they actually do in this Deterrence Summit. There's 500 nuclear weapons contractors and subcontractors, all discussing how they're going to get more money out of the government, and so you maybe saw her article that she wrote about that a couple of years ago, and we've got Anduin going in this time. Most of us are going to be outside. I mean, we do go in and leaflet until we get kicked out. Most of you probably know Anthony Donovan. I mean, he's been spearheading this, and I'm sure other VFP members will be there. So we're gonna be outside for sure, with banners and so on. But if we can get in, leaflet. Anthony actually asked a question and got dragged out last year. So these companies, like I say, they need to hear from us that we're not happy with what they're doing, and that we're going to put pressure on them. Social media, shaming them on social media, getting faith communities in towns and colleges to divest. Well, whatever we can do, that's our big goal. And I'll stop there because that's really our main focus going forward. But if you got questions or want to discuss, I know you're going to talk about the Trump thing later, so that's great.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a couple of questions and some good discussion here. That's a lot, Tim, and thanks for all the great work you're doing there. So I want to start out with kind of a devil's advocate question, and that's you mentioned that we're not going to get much done in Congress in the next couple of years as far as bills passed. And of course, that's not very easy to do, even when the Democrats are in the majority there. So I guess my question is to give you an opportunity to convince us the importance of congressional work, and despite the fact that there's such a high hill to climb, and meaningful legislation is so far off.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I mean, our main focus is on the companies, and really that's going to be more effective and a better use of our time and our energy and our scarce resources. But at the end of the day, Congress has to vote for these things. They've got to pass laws eventually, and so unless we're building support for these things, bit by bit, I think it has to happen in the long run. And so it's about finding our allies and trying to build that out. And when we first when the treaty was passed in 2017, Vicky and I went around talking to peace organizations about what to do, and they all said like no member of Congress is going to support this treaty, none ever. And I said, well, we'll see. And it took us a year to get Jim McGovern on board, because even though he's our representative, he was saying, well, I can't do anything unless Markey's behind this, and Markey was not, and still is not. I mean, we got a meeting with Markey's office next week, but he's not. He doesn't support the treaty. So, it took a lot of work to get Jim McGovern on board, and one by one, we've got another 12 or so on board. Now, whether it's worth the energy, is a good question. But I think, personally, that building some allies in Congress, is going to be needed sooner or later, and so it's just part of the process.
Well, I think doing the congressional work is important, but I'm really glad that you're putting increasing focus on the companies themselves. And I think I know a lot of people in Veterans for Peace are talking about targeting the weapons manufacturers in general for a lot of attention in the coming period. But back to Congress for a second, I like the idea of somehow linking HR 77 and the Norton bill so that they can be promoted together instead of like almost being competing bills in Congress. Is that the kind of your thinking about that?
Yep.
Okay. Alice Slater's got her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you're looking particularly at New York and New Jersey people for the meeting of the states parties, because they're right here in New York with the UN.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know whether that's like a strategy or whether we can help. We're in New York here. I'm in New York, I mean,
Yeah.
We have a big network of peace activists, Anthony and all of those people.
Yep. Well,
But,
as you know, Alice, I mean, we've been trying to get AOC signed onto the Norton bill, and so 2 or 3 years ago, and hasn't supported it since then, and we're still trying to get her.
She's a sellout. She's a sellout. I mean, they're all sellouts.
Well, I mean,
and that other bill, the Markey bill, embraced the treaty. Whoever embraces a treaty, I mean, I don't know.
Alice, you just asked me, are we trying to get members of?
No, I know.
We are. So we met with Yvette Clark's office today, but she's also,
well, that's I want to know whether there anybody in New York that was like that we could go after that you think might be.
Yeah.
That you met in the Congo or New Jersey, because we have that local network. I'm just talking from my.
Yeah. Well, we had Ivana and Christian Chabano down, today, yesterday. We've been working, and Seth was down, and Anthony's coming down. So they are trying to reach out to their
Okay.
but it's kind of hopeless. I mean, we tried this last time. Nadler and all these people, they said no.
Mm-hmm.
So
That
What
was
about it?
So
Is Ilhan Omar available for that?
Ilhan Omar is not available for at the moment. I mean, we really pleaded, because she almost came to Vienna that time, the first one. But she's willing to come to do a press conference in D.C., but she's got some commitment at the weekend. So does McGovern, but he's trying to change his schedule, and we asked Ilhan Omar's office, maybe she can change her schedule, but we don't,
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, if there aren't any other particular questions or comments, I'd like to transition into something that you already raised, Tim, and it's on our agenda. That is Trump's statement about quote-unquote denuclearization and talking to Russia about getting rid of nuclear weapons. I don't think he put it in those words. And what that means, and is it an opening for a response from the nuclear abolition movement, and what can we do about it? So that's whoever wants to jump in on that. Alice?
yeah, I mean, I told you, I think that Code Pink. Well, I was complaining basically about Darrell Kimball's type, that they're always talking about steps and they're never talking about abolition. And I found out there's now a scholarly word for it. Like they've been writing, tracts in university, anti-preneurism. instead of entrepreneur, it's anti-preneurism, which is that they never propose a final, abolition or disarmament or elimination. It's always some insignificant, illusory step that you think you're making progress. And so that's what's out there right now. And
Right. Which makes them complicit, really, in discontinuing the status quo of nuclear weapons.
Yep.
so anyway, there's this whole thing to change the conversation and talk about it in a new way, and Trump is there. I mean, I hate to say anything good about the guy, but what he said, you never heard from Biden or Clinton or Obama, I mean, he
Right.
actually wanted to win a Nobel Peace Prize with North Korea, and they wouldn't let him. He was making a deal that they wouldn't do nuclear testing if we took 10,000 troops out of the 38,000 and stopped the sanctions, signed a peace treaty, and they agreed to this. And Trump comes back to Congress, and they said nothing doing. They didn't let him. And then he went and tested more nuclear weapons in North Korea. I mean,
Okay, got Greg and Rachel got their hands up, and let's try to, for the moment, to keep on the topic of how we might respond to Trump's
Yeah.
statement. Greg?
I don't, it seems to me, well, again, you guys are much more experienced than I am. I'm a newcomer, but public awareness, public, I hate to say it, but fear about nuclear weapons seems to be extremely important. That's how Reagan got where he did with that movie about the end of the world. The whole nation was scared. So this is not a scary thing so much, but Trump's always in the news, right? He's newsworthy. So how about thinking of ways to kind of keep this kind of hot, keep this in the news?
Yes.
Nuclear
Rachel?
awareness.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Greg. Yes, Rachel, what do you think about that?
I would like to bring your attention to 2 points, which may be just preaching to the choir, but I just wanted to mention that the first point is nuclear weapon is no longer important because pre-existing nuclear facilities can already function as nuclear weapons. The reason behind why I can say it is looking at what happened in the Middle East. Russia's newest weapon, supersonic mid-range ballistic missiles, can shoot nuclear facilities such as nuclear power plants without attaching any nuclear warheads to its own missile, right? So having nuclear facilities on our side, it's already functioned as nuclear weapons. It is
So that's definitely a danger. But how
another
right now we're responding to this, how to respond to Trump's nuclearization comment. So
denuclearization or nuclearization?
his
No,
denuclearization.
Trump said he was afraid, and then he's going to talk to Russia and China. I think we should write a Veterans of Peace letter to him saying we fought in the wars. I mean, we have a lot of gravitas, even to Trump, when you're writing as veterans.
I think he's balancing out. He in his mind, he's clearly separating nuclear as a weapon and nuclear as energy, right? But the nuclear as an energy part is only pushed so strongly forward by those techno laws like Bill Gates, and who wants to open up the reactor.
But that's another issue, Rachel.
So we're going to have a go round. Everybody's going to get a chance to say what's on their mind, like we usually do at the top of the meeting.
Yes.
But I want to move off this topic if there's no more to say about it. But do people think that maybe the VFP Nuclear Abolition Working Group should take an initiative here to write a response to Trump's statement, and maybe in conjunction with others, possibly Warheads and Windmills and others?
Yes.
Like a good idea?
Yes.
Alice thinks so. Ellen thinks so. Timmon thinks so. Jim thinks so. So even Rachel thinks so. But But okay, so who wants to, and Dan's got his hand up. Anybody volunteering to help draft such a statement? Or
I'm already working on a draft for Warheads to Windmills, so which I can share with you. But I think Alice's point of making it a real veterans thing was a great, also would add
Okay.
value to it. So.
Please share that with us, and maybe we'll want to co-sign if that makes sense, and possibly also put a veterans angle letter. Dan, you had your hand up and took it back down.
I just wanted to say I thought it was a good idea. You have to think of Trump's vanity. So if if you compliment him on the idea that we think it's a really great idea that you want
It
to
is.
get rid of these nuclear weapons, and that's
Wait.
how you reach him,
Right.
a little bit. You play with his vanity. It reminded me of the movie Schindler's List when he was talking to one of the German folks about their right you could be like a god because you can give life or you can take life, and that's what Trump thinks of himself.
Right.
He's
Right.
sort of cult figure, and so we want to play to his vanity a little bit, and say, you have the power to do this,
Right.
and you can make the Democrats look like fools. Do something like that.
And you can win the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what he wanted to do with North Korea. You could be the greatest peace, but you'll have the prize of this. We should write something like that. It should come from a veteran's perspective. I don't know who's all good writers. Maybe Tarak will do it, or.
So we can move on to the rest of our agenda. And Timmon, you're welcome to stay with us as long as you like, but I know you got your dinner waiting for you, and you've had a long day. So
I've had a long day, so I'll let you.
You're excused if you need to go.
Well, thank you all, and good luck with the rest of your meeting, and we'll see you.
Yeah, thanks so much. We learned a lot from your presentation, and it's inspiring. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thanks. It's
Talk
great.
again soon. Okay, great. Ellen Barfield, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. You have a special information and request to make, and we're looking forward to hearing.
Thank you. First of all, I want to ask a question. You probably will be better than most, but I have just been amazed at the obliviousness. So, how many of you know where the U.S. nuclear weapons test site is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Greg, sort of. Okay, that's a lot. The reason I ask is because probably most of you know by now that the Veterans for Peace convention, the first face-to-face one since Spokane in 2019, is going to be in Las Vegas in late July. Las Vegas being 60 miles southeast of the National Nuclear Weapons Test Site, which is still owned, although the U.S. government doesn't give a flying flip, by the Western Shoshone tribe whose land it has been for millennia. They did not cede it. They did not get paid money for it even. They said, no, you can't have it, but you know how our government is. I had my very first 2 civil resistance arrests ever at the test site in 1988. So I've known about it for a long time. And I know a specific person who is a leader now of the Western Shoshone tribe. He was just one of many members of the tribe back 40 years ago when I was demonstrating there. His name is Ian Zabarte. I asked him as soon as I found out Vegas was going to be the venue, and he is available anytime, all 3 days of the convention. And I have mentioned that repeatedly. I have said the U.S. has a nuclear weapons test site. It is very near Vegas. I know someone who is a leader of the tribe whose land it is, and I want him to speak for the convention. Is that so hard to hear? There's been a lot of obliviousness to it, so obviously I need more than just me saying it, and I hope the committee can support the urging to have Ian be preferably a keynoter, probably in a panel. And Greg and I said a little bit together on a previous call about I guess yesterday on the convention call, in fact, Greg, about
What?
I think most keynoters should be in panels. And Ian will speak about the long tribal struggle and their specific pain and suffering and health effects and all. But an expert or two about nuclear weapons policy in general should be on the panel too. So I'm not trying to say Ian will cover it all, but he badly needs to be a speaker for the convention to get the word out about the attack on tribal sovereignty and the fact that it is their land right there by Vegas that is where the test site is. And I hope the committee can support that. We're still in the process of deciding keynoters. And it's just, I'm having a hard time getting it through to people. So some more support would be much happy to be received. Yes, Alice?
We had Ian come and testify at the New York City Council when we were getting our city council to pass a resolution supporting the new treaty. He's articulate, he's wonderful, and he would be a great speaker, and he represents the Western Shoshone, and their holy land has all the lousy nuclear testing forever. So I support. I don't know why you're having such a hard time. I don't know who makes those decisions. I'm not in it, but I think it's a very good idea, and whoever has influence with the program committee should push it. I think I would support it. Yeah.
How about we send a formal request to the convention committee
Yes.
that Ian, I'm sorry, what's his last name?
I'm putting it in the chat. I'm putting it in the chat right now.
Duarte be a keynote speaker, and also that there be a panel on nuclear issues within which he would be one of the speakers. Or maybe we shouldn't say that. You want him as a keynote if possible, right, Ellen?
Correct.
But also as part of a panel if possible?
I would hope it could be a keynote panel as opposed to one speaker, several speakers.
An opening panel, you mean?
Yeah.
Could be opening. It doesn't have to be. Ian's available all 3 days. So it could be opening, middle, closing.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know how, I haven't been attending the convention committee meetings, which are actually open to all board members. But I think I heard that they were discussing doing something similar to what they did last year on the online convention, which is to not have workshops happening at the same time. So they have a number of panels, but none of them are competing with one another, in other words. But also that means there's fewer.
It's looking, Jerry, although it's not finalized, that it'll be 2 at a time because it makes it so minimal as to what can be covered. But it's not decided yet. It'll be either 1 or 2.
So we push for a keynote panel on anti-nuclear issues, including Ian Zabarte. Would that make sense? Or do you want to write it up for us, Ellen?
I could do that, sure.
And we'll send it in the name of the working group. Anybody? Does everybody agree with that? Sounds right to me. Sounds right to all of us, I think. So yeah.
Thanks.
We're glad
yes,
to help.
Dan.
Yeah, I would. We were talking about this in the DU committee also, and as we were talking about having speakers, Kijino and others as a panelist, and Rachel also talked about having somebody come from Japan, and so we were thinking as we were talking about this was to have a panel that would represent all of these issues. So I think that's a great idea, and I just want to put that out there. It's not just one person. It's really there's a number of people that have been affected by it and survived it, and I think we need to see what we can do to bring that together.
Exactly, and the theme of the convention is focusing on anniversary years,
That's
80
right.
years since Hiroshima, 70 years since Vietnam ended, 40 years since VFP started. So yes, nuclear weapons and their horrible risks are a specific topic. So
Great,
Good idea.
good. Um,
thank you. I will write up a statement.
okay, terrific. Okay, we got like one more small item to cover, and then we're going to go to what we usually do at the beginning of the meeting, go around and hear from all of you, each of you, about what you're up to, what's on your mind these days, whatever you have to share. We have time to do that. So yeah, the small item is about the webinar. So we've been talking for a couple months about doing another large no nukes webinar, which we've done several successful ones in the past, including with hundreds of people. Well, we we had a technical problem that limited us to 100 last time, and we don't want to make that mistake again. I heard the Mike Ferner and their democracy webinar last night had the same problem. So
It just
we'll
takes
make
paying
sure
Zoom
that
more
doesn't
money,
happen.
doesn't it?
Huh? No, I don't
Doesn't
know
it just
how
take
it
paying
all
Zoom
works.
more money?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, you pay them a little more money. Last time, I think at our last webinar, we had as many as 300 people registered. And so we have the possibility of drawing a lot of people. So anyway, we've been talking about this one for a few months, and it's taken a while to come together. But KJ No and Norman Solomon have agreed to be our speakers.
They're
And
great.
they're both great. So the theme, the general theme of the webinar was kind of conceived of following KJ's presentation at our last month's meeting, or maybe it was 2 months ago. Basically, how U.S. intervention in Ukraine, the Middle East, and in Asia is increasing the risk of nuclear war. That's kind of a generality, but it kind of also now, of course, anti-nuclear organizing in the age of Trump. So KJ wants to focus primarily on Korea and China and Pacific. Norman said he could discuss Ukraine and the Middle East, but he wants to do so primarily in the context of the U.S. media and politics, which is kind of his bailiwick. Well, both of those sound really interesting and great. And we had asked Medea Benjamin to speak also, and she thinks she's going to be traveling at that time, so she's not available. But I think these two speakers, I think I'd like to keep it to two speakers because they'll have more time each, and they both have so much to share. And of course, we'll want to have a lot of discussion. So KJ had agreed to speak on Thursday, February 13th. But that's awfully soon for doing the kind of gathering co-sponsors and promoting it the way we hope to do. So I'm gonna, and Norman said he's available on the 20th and the 27th. Well, the 27th turns out to be the fourth Thursdays now are the series of democracy workshops, democracy versus corporations that Mike Ferner is doing. So I think I'm going to see if KJ can move back 1 week, and I'm hoping he'll be available. I got a message into him today, and I'm waiting for his response. So I'm looking at the 20th, which is 4 weeks from yesterday. Norman also said Roots Action would co-sponsor and promote. We're going to ask Massachusetts Peace Action to co-sponsor and promote, as we're doing for them on their March 17th webinar on small nuclear modular reactors. So it's all good.
World Beyond War would do it, and then they would also have
Yes.
a mailing list.
Yes, I want to ask them and several others, see how many people we can get on board, how big we can make it. So we still have to clarify the date issue. I apologize that that's not all set, but I think I'm optimistic that the 20th will work. And if not, then I'll see if Norman can move up one week and do it on the 13th, and we'll just have to make the best of it in the next 3 weeks. How's that sound?
Fine. Perfect.
Okay. Well,
What-
I'll keep it. Go ahead, Greg.
What are the odds that we can fix that 100-person limitation? Because we've talked about it before.
Oh, we absolutely can. There's no problem. I mean, you just have to know what you're doing.
Is somebody going to take that on?
Yes, I'm going to make sure that we got it right. It was just really a mistake last time that was made in the national office, because it could have easily been done differently.
Greg, it's just paying for a bigger system from Zoom. That's all.
And I think we already have that bigger system.
I think so.
One's pro and one's free. That's the difference.
We have, I think VFP has everything we need. We just have to set it up right. But we'll double, triple check, and I'll get Ellen Davison to be on over Shelley's shoulder to make sure it's okay. Thanks for raising that, because we definitely don't want to have that problem again, because I'm sure we'll get over 100 people. So that'll be good. All right. Next, we're just going to have a go around. I guess one thing I'll throw out there for people, aside from telling us how you're doing and what you're up to and what's on your mind, especially in terms of anti-nuclear work, what do you think this Veterans for Peace and our Nuclear Abolition Working Group might be doing in the coming year that would be most meaningful and effective? There's a big one for you, if you want to include that in your remarks. But I'm just going to go around, and I'm going to start with Harvey Bennett, because I know he's got some news to share. He's going to be facing down the nuclear profiteers next week.
Yeah, I'll be at the Nuclear Deterrence Summit, and General Cotton will be there again. I don't know if they'll call on me that time around, but I talked to Greg Mello yesterday, and we definitely want to ask him some questions, specifically about these comments by Admiral Buchanan, who is the head of planning and policy for Stratcom. So we'll see what General Cotton has to say about that.
And what were his comments, Harvey?
His comments were, he was asked about in theater or in a situation where there's going to be an exchange, and someone said, how do you win? And the moderator said, she'd had a lot of people respond, there's no winning. If there's a nuclear exchange, there's no winning. And he said, well, he didn't agree with that. He thought that, we could, we would just need to put ourselves in a position where we are, after a nuclear exchange, we would be in a position to still lead and still have a nuclear force to deter any other. He's thinking China, I guess, that we would still have the ability to deter another attack. But
so after a nuclear exchange, we still have the ability to have another nuclear.
After your nuclear war, what do you do for an encore? Basically, it's just absurd.
That whole strategy of winning a nuclear war, also aside from the fact that it can't be won, even trying to do so means first strike.
Yeah, that's what it implied.
Yeah,
we're not going to use all of our arsenal. Well,
yeah.
I mean, if we're using all of our arsenal, there's no world left. So you're talking about leading the world after that. So
I'm just going to follow the Hollywood squares around the way they're lined up on my screen. So that means you're next, Jay.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I'm working with right now is with Damasio on doing a film festival on DU in Hawaii. And we were just on a call yesterday, and so we're planning on doing that. And it's also we're trying to do it simultaneously with Sardinia, but they weren't on the call yesterday, so we don't know how that's working out. One of the things that we're talking about to do to start it off is to have a student film contest from high school to college students in Hawaii to get the interest of the young people there. We will put up an award from $500 to $1,000, and then we'll have that awarded on the days that we have the film festival. We're looking at sometime in December right now, when the flights are cheapest. That's been recommended to us. So and then that means all the young students, their families will be there. Everybody will be there. They want to be for the film festival. So we're planning it out pretty good, but it's working with the young indigenous students in Hawaii to do this contest to begin with.
Sounds great. And, you know, I'm sure you know that Ann Wright has lots of good contacts there in Hawaii if you need any more than you already have.
Yeah. I was going to also say that one of the issues, and probably this is something I need to talk to Shelley about, is they want to set up a fundraiser and to have the money go somewhere. And I was suggesting that they could use VFP as a fiscal sponsor. So I think that's probably a good way to do that.
So Greg, you got your hand up. Are you responding to Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I remember, but can you just refresh my memory on why Sardinia is important?
Yeah, see, the reason it is that they've been that's where they test DU weapons, and like Portugal,
Puerto Rico.
in Puerto Rico, yeah, like Puerto Rico, where they do the testing, and same thing in Hawaii. There's a lot of places where they were testing. And what happened in Sardinia, there's been some major articles in which children are being born with birth defects. So that's one of and it's attributed to DU in that area. So
Right.
that's
One of those articles was actually written by Helen Jacquard after she and I visited Sardinia, it's about a decade ago by now. But we know some folks there if that can be helpful. But I wonder how you would manage to do simultaneous. Well, obviously, time zone wise, you wouldn't be able to do it exactly the same time.
But it's the idea that we're doing it in the same year. We're trying to do it, and
okay.
We're on the same committee, so we've been, talking to people at the same time in a sort of working Zoom.
Cool, great, sounds terrific. Glad somebody from the DU.
So did you hear that?
group is
I'm
here
sorry.
today.
I just want to ask Dan, did you hear that they were using depleted uranium ammunition in Ukraine? I think I read
They
that.
more likely are. And,
I read that. I mean, how could they?
well,
could
the major problem we've had with DU is getting the physical evidence. In areas of war, they're not allowing people to go in there. Same issue as in Gaza. We've been trying to get information. There's speculation, but since they're coding a lot of these weapons, these bunker busters, to go into these things, and they take depleted uranium to be able to do that. So it's likely they are, but unless we have the scientific tests to prove it, it's all speculation.
All right, let's hear from Hollis up there in Spokane. How you doing, Hollis?
Hey,
By the way,
great.
that was a great convention we had in Spokane a few years ago.
I got to tell you, I get a lot of feedback. The residuals kept coming in for years. People who said they attended that and really learned a lot and enjoyed it. And I was disappointed that National regrets losing $12,000 on the convention, because I think that was money well spent, my friends. Anyway, I just want to share with you the button. That's the button from the Vets for Peace Convention in Spokane. The theme was Sacred Lands, Sacred Lives, Peace Knows No Borders. So we stand by that sentiment to this very day. Anyway, getting on to my report. I think, and to tag onto that, my opinion is that all Vets for Peace conventions should be starter conventions. And once you get a Vets for Peace convention in your town, you should do it every year. And we need peace conventions in every town possible every year. And we learned so much about how to do a convention, and we had such great support that there's no reason why we shouldn't have kept it going, except for, of course, maybe COVID. But it's our convention center, damn it, and we want to use our convention center for a peace convention. So I'm going to propose that to our locals. Next thing is I'm working on a DU cartoon. The same guy that did that Ground Zero comic book, I talked to him, Leonard Pifas, and we're trying to do a DU comic book to explain very simply to people that you don't want to touch that stuff or be within 25 feet of it, and you sure don't want to inhale that stuff. So, yeah, so we're going to try to do, and he's agreed to be an advisor, but I've got to line up the cartoonist. So anyway, the next thing is...
Hollis, are you in touch with or part of the DU working group at all?
Oh, yeah, been there for 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Next thing was we're working on our ordinance to tie in with the Nuclear Deterrent Summit that they're having. And we have given that list, as I think I've told you before, to our purchasing agent here in town. We've got a bunch of city council people that are ready to tweak our old ordinance, making Spokane a nuclear weapons free zone to include nuclear waste. And they are trying to ship it through Spokane all the way down to Utah and Texas. So there's big ruckus now going on about that. And I guess the Fifth Circuit Court has said you can't do it because Congress didn't authorize temporary storage. So you can't, there's nowhere to ship it anyway. So why are you doing it? Next thing is Washington Against Nuclear Weapons Coalition, April 11 through 13 in Seattle at a church. There's going to be a anti-nuclear conference, and they are invited several guest speakers. Gosh, who am I thinking? I cannot remember their names, but the final session will be Korean Hibakusha are going to testify. We're trying to get vans to go from Seattle over there, and there's going to be 2 days of speakers and panels. They're even trying to get a youth panel together, and they're getting homestays together. There's going to be a Korean lunch served, and the 13th is supposed to be a visit to Ground Zero itself, which is right next to the Trident's base. So please put that on your calendar. And then hazardous waste, I already talked about that. And the last thing is the efforts that we make at Vets for Peace. I think I sent you all a 11-page draft of some opinions about how we're not keeping up with the requirements of the time, and we are not matching the reality of our time. And my proposal was in your face, every day, every place, in every way. And that is what we need to do. We need a marketing firm that can stay awake 24/7 and get this message out every day. I mean, you go to a political door knocking thing, and every second house has the TV on full blast on the local news. And so they can't even hear us at the front door. So we need to try every sense of a human being's receptors to influence our message for peace. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Hollis. That's a lot of good stuff. And yeah, we all have to step up our game and learn some new tricks. Jim, welcome. You're up.
Wait. For the notes, what's the dates again of that conference in Seattle?
April 11 to 13. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay, Jim Wogemuth.
All right. Well, Harvey and I just kind of try to keep spreading the word with the radio show. And Harvey's going to go to the deterrence conference, and I'm going to hopefully get some recording and share that on the radio show so we can get get all the information about what the No Nukes group and Veterans for Peace and a variety of other people get it out to the public in the best way we can, or in the in the way we can. I don't know whether it's the best way, but in the way we can. So Veterans for Peace, on SoundCloud, on Spotify, on Pacifica Radio Network. So that's what we're trying to do.
Great. Yeah, I wonder if you could put together an email with those various ways of accessing that show, the Veterans for Peace Radio show or hour or whatever, just Veterans for Radio, VFP Radio, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
Right? So we could share that not only with the No Nukes Working Group, but VFP All, et cetera, because I think that it's a great show that needs more people need to be aware of it and know how to access it. So I'd like to help with that.
All right, I'll do that, Jerry.
Rachel, what's up?
I have several. First of all, from February, we're going to start spreading the words of Project 1030 again. And it will be great if this group can be one of the co-sponsors or co-organizers. I'm looking forward to having this group and Golden Rule, as well as VFP's environmental group and a DU group. And I'd like to start collecting samples from March and send them to Japan to get the much bigger map of radiation exposure of the soil from this land. And that soil, actually, what we're going to collect is the wood ash sample from wood stove and fireplaces. That's one. Number two, I'm in the process of translating and adding English subtitles to a TV documentary program, which was produced on air 2011, which revealed the fact that the U.S. military bases in Japan kept nuclear weapons in Okinawa. But not only so, but they had a training facility in mainland Japan to U.S. soldiers how to deal with nuclear weapons. So, which is was a big scoop in those days. But I think this material is very much adequate for the current what's going on now, because they explain what Douglas MacArthur was aiming as the targets of nuclear bombing, such as Soviet Union, China, North Korea, in those places, for which Japan and South Korea, were all put together as a kind of operational basis. So this movie thing is one project that I'm working on now. And when I'm done, I would like to do also translation and adding English subtitles to a recent documentary film on Mr. Akio Kuroi, who's been working on PTSD cases in Japan. And he went to China last September to officially apologize. And now he wants to go different places in Asia to keep apologizing of what the Imperial Japanese Army did to those places, because the way he calculated is very interesting, because based on US PTSD cases, there's so much studies going on. So he calculated how many children and grandchildren have been affected by PTSDs of their fathers and grandfathers. So the PTSD population is growing. So what he wants to say is, look at this. We have so many people already suffering. Do we still have more war? So this is a kind of anti-war message that he wants to convey. By the way, he's coming to the United States this coming September. And I already, sent out information to those chapters who were interested in hosting him when he comes, but I haven't heard any official answers yet. So I need to push some more. And and also I just came back from my business trip, supporting journalists from Okinawa, interviewing key people in the field of PFAS pollution. And you have to understand that the PFAS has been developing together with nuclear weapons. You cannot put these things apart. Whenever we use nuclear weapons, we have to have a PFAS products. And even away from nuclear weapons, as long as U.S. bases exist, they have so many applications of PFAS, all different parts. And the pollution level of the United States, unbelievable. So I wish we have a PFAS working group under the umbrella of VFB. That would be super, because then you can connect so many younger, environmentally inclining generations, because it's from the tap water. It's from what you use every day like this. It's applied all different places. So it's a very important thing that we need to awaken a lot of people. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. That's a lot of good stuff too, and bad stuff as well. Well, we do have what's the man's name who's done so much work on PFAS? It's a
Elder.
pardon?
Elder.
Pat Elder, of course. Yeah, he's like a working group and plus on all one-man working group.
And he's oh, by the way, I forgot to mention one more thing. Like Dan mentioned before, this year, instead of visiting Japan, our peace speaking tour will be hoping to bring people to the United States. And currently, I'm under negotiation with the Samuel Lawrence Foundation if they could support trans-Pacific mileage airfare tickets for those people, and if so, how many? If in the future. Yeah.
Well, Rachel, it sounds like you don't really have quite enough to do. We'll have to think of a couple more projects we can send your way. But thank you for everything you do. Vic White, how are things in Southern Cal? Have you been affected by the LA fires?
Oh, we've all been affected. But yeah, our chapter has not a huge presence in anti-nuclear, but we have a effort around protest of Vandenberg-based weapons, but it's all kind of secret as to when we can do that. But we have Dave Patterson's lead on that effort, and that's all tied into bigger and better nuclear arsenal.
We have McGregor Eddy here sometimes too. So that's about the tests, the missile launches that they do from Vandenberg Air Force Base on the California coast into guess where? The Marshall Islands.
Yes.
Fraudulent.
Yes, that's happening. And then we have some activity around Hiroshima Day, but nothing dramatic. I would think we could be more active with this group as a beginning. I know I'd like to be more active with this group. When the working group really went public or got organized, there was a layout of who did what and which committees were accountable for which activities. That'd be great if you could send me that again. I'd kind of update me. And then finally, on a personal level, our chapter has pushed HR 77 over the years.
The back to the brink legislation, right?
Yeah, the resolution. I think we're going to try, I'm going to propose we try to do that more systematically by contacting each of the decision makers on the committee where it currently resides, and also try to get more signatories. We're pretty liberal out here. We've got a good chance of encouraging our representatives in Congress to sign on. We'll take that on. That's about it.
Great, Dick. Well, thanks for joining us, and say hi to Dave for us as well. I know he wants to be. He's recently stated that he I guess since he's no longer the president of the chapter, he has more time for his passion, which is anti-nuclear work, I think. So we'll be looking forward to seeing more of him as well. So
Oh,
Greg,
I was going to mention Dave's an example of somebody that will probably participate in the Nevada Desert Experience Peace Walk, and it ends up at the Nevada test site. And I'll
right,
probably participate in that this year. That's a
great.
very positive organization, and it ties right in with support for indigenous rights in that area.
What
And
time of
they
year does
too
that?
are aware of the convention and somewhat involved in helping it happen. Yes.
What time of year does that peace walk take place usually?
Lance,
April
April.
11th through I think 17.
it's
Something.
Holy Week, Jerry. They're
Okay,
faith-based, so it's Holy Week.
I get it.
It
Thank you.
is. It's tied
Yeah.
in with religion, but
Yeah.
who can be against all religion?
So, Greg, what's you up to? What's on your mind?
Not much. I think I
Aside from taking
pass.
notes.
Yeah, my arm's getting sore from typing, so I better take a. I'm
Oh.
gonna rest.
Oh my God, thank you so much. That's much appreciated, Greg.
Thank you.
So thanks so much. And Alice, how about you?
I spoke so much. I'll just say this thing. Code Pink, go to their website, Peace Clock, because we were having a brainstorm and I said, I'm so tired of the doomsday machine. You know, it's coming up 90 seconds to midnight. I said, why don't we talk about all the solutions that are out there that nobody used? You know, like Russia and China have been begging us to negotiate a treaty to ban weapons in space. And then they'll talk to us about nuclear, so they won't talk about it. You know, so, and then of course this new thing with Trump. So I just think that we're at a point where we're going to shift the conversation, and Code Pink's doing this huge thing. Other people are coming on. I think it'll be launched on Monday, that we're going around to all the doomsday clock celebrations and saying, let's have a peace clock now, and let's put the time back to the dawn of a peaceful age, and think of all the things we could do that would make it happen, like restore the ABM treaty, take the U.S. nukes out of NATO and Europe, you know. But, you know, it's all us. There was that comic in the 50s, Pogo, we met the enemy and he is us. It's really
Speaking of the peace clock, the doomsday clock, that's coming up next week. Apparently,
right.
They're
So we're going to do it.
I can't imagine they're going to have to move it a little bit, but they don't have much room to go. 90 seconds.
Well, maybe with Trump saying he's going to talk to Putin and that's a reason to move it back a couple of minutes. You know.
Yeah.
That's
I have
a good
mixed
sign.
feelings about that. A lot of people, I mean, that doomsday clock has certainly been very successful in terms of getting major attention in major media, and I see a lot of different writers referencing it, and yet I have mixed feelings about it, as I know some of us do here, because the organization that sponsors that, what do they call themselves?
The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists.
Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. They've really moved
Their arms
pretty
control.
pretty far to the right. They're into the arms control, and it's very establishment, and sometimes pretty horrible. Some of the stuff they put that bulletin out, I don't know, monthly or something like that. There'll be some articles that'll be worthwhile, and some articles that'll make you say, "What the heck?"
Well, the doomsday clock was a concept of Albert Einstein in 1947. I just wrote an article about it. It's on the Code Pink website, and Counterpunch picked it up. Maybe I'll send it again. I
please
have
do.
Stuff in the chat, but I think I sent it already.
Yeah,
anyway, I'll send it again. It's going all over the place. But the history of the clock, you know, and no matter what we did, it kept. The best it ever was 17 minutes to midnight, when the Russians and the U.S. decided to stop nuclear testing. So they said, That's the furthest back it went, you know.
Oh,
And
good
now
to
it's
know.
90 seconds to minutes. So what, you know, it's like we have to change the conversation. We have to talk about the peace. How do we get to the Peace Club?
Well, maybe if they factor in Trump's comments yesterday, they'll be
Yes.
able to
We'll
move
move it a
back a little
couple of
bit.
minutes, I think. I
Uh,
told him to do that. Put it on the clock.
Ellen, you got some last words for us?
Oh, my main thing was what I presented about. In case anybody wonders, I live in Baltimore near DC, and why am I not turning out for Timmon and gang? I choose not to own a car, and we've been in the deep freeze here. Up until today, it hasn't been above freezing for weeks, and we have gotten a lot of snow. And yes, the streets, the big streets get plowed, the small ones, eventually the cars wear down the snow. But that means all that half frozen crap splashes over to the edges where I have to bicycle. Very dangerous. So I'm pretty much stuck at home. Plus, of course, other stuff is filled in. Anthony reached out to me months ago about the events, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try to participate, but I just can't get there right now. Plus, like I said, plenty of other stuff. Sadly, one of the only 3 remaining core members of our Veterans for Peace chapter just died. So we're at a very low ebb. But we keep plugging along. We are going to do with Peace Action and other peace colleagues in Baltimore an action on No Bases Day on the 23rd of February. That's our next upcoming thing. At Fort Meade will be. So we keep plugging along, but we got to find some new members. I've had a little bit of outreach from some young folks, but they chime in once or twice and then they disappear. So I'll keep trying.
What's the name of your departed member?
Dave Schott. He was at
Dave
Tan
Schott.
Son Nhut in Vietnam in the Air Force, and he didn't have any remaining family even. So it was his church group with whom he was very active, especially about Nicaragua solidarity, that pulled together the funeral and the obit. And they misspelled Tan Son Nhut pretty badly in the obit, which I expected, and big deal. But they did.
Well, Dave Schott, presente.
Yeah.
I see that Carol Goyburn from Fresno, California, who works closely sometimes with our board vice president, Joshua Shirley, had to leave the meeting early, but she's put in a text, "Thank you all for an informative meeting." She had an appointment she had to get to. So I'll give myself the last word. I'm energized by these meetings. I'm always so happy with our Nuclear Abolition Working Group meetings and all the great information we share and all the great activities that we're involved with. And generally speaking, kind of counterintuitively, after the ascension of Donald Trump to a second term, yeah, people are scared, people are depressed, worried, but there's also a lot of new energy out there, new coalitions coming together, new opportunities for building alliances, broader alliances, and hopefully that will include anti-nuclear work. It's part of our job to bring that issue to these coalitions and alliances to make sure it doesn't slip between the cracks. So I'm actually feeling energized and optimistic in a certain kind of way about the coming period.
Could I report, and this isn't just since Trump, but it's since Gaza, that there is a wonderful Johns Hopkins University group that was very widespread in their condemnation, not just of Hopkins supporting weapons to Israel, but a lot of other things, including the applied physics lab at Hopkins, which does nuclear weapons work, among other things. Hopkins is the biggest academic recipient of government money, government weapons money, the biggest college in the country, and has been for decades for that. And they just secretly, Hopkins that is, put out a report part of what they promised the Palestine encampment on Hopkins to get it to break up, and they didn't break it up violently. I got to say, they were better than they could have been. But part of what they promised them to get it to break up was, yes, we'll look at our investments more quickly than we intended, which is every 5 years, and that was coming up in a while. And they secretly reported that they did not make any changes in investments, including supporting weapons research because it's so much money and we need it.
Yeah,
No
right.
surprise, but and the student group put out an angry response and intend to stay active. So we'll be active with them.
Well,
I just want to say the one thing that made me so happy. 1 million South Koreans showed up at their parliament and
Yeah.
said, "You're not going to do martial law."
Yeah, that was
And
great.
that's what we got to do. I mean,
Yep.
as soon as they start getting crappy, we've got to show up, millions of us,
right.
Yep.
and take back democracy. We need
Yeah.
a French Revolution. We haven't had democracy ever since Reagan. I mean, the Republicrats were running the army and the corporation. You know, we didn't. It didn't matter whether you were Democrat or Republican. It was a mess.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned students, Ellen, because the young activists are showing up for real in many places, and some of them are even reaching out to Veterans for Peace, wanting to work with us. So there's going to be some new opportunities there as well. Greg, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was,
Question for the notes.
no. I guess you all know what's going on with Ken Mayers, and he's on the way out. But he would love to get calls, and if you want,
Oh,
I can give
really?
you his phone number. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had. I mean, I went over there. I guess it was almost 10 days ago, and he was like, me and two other guys were there, and then 7 people showed up, and then the neighbors showed up. So he really appreciates and likes to, interact with people. So
So
I
tell
could.
him his phone number. I'll call. I love him. He was so great when we did that nuclear posture review. He was my favorite editor.
Okay.
And Greg, I was one of many who were going to come for his party, and I don't blame him a bit. Please, I'm not criticizing. I was not surprised, in fact, that he had to call it off. But I was
Well,
hoping to see him one last time. I have been emailing him, and we'll call him too.
okay.
So what?
What's the number, Greg?
The area code 505. It's tiny print. 577-1975.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So Ken's.
email is Ken May. Put the email in the minutes or something.
Oh, okay. I'll put both of those in the minutes.
So Ken has been saying goodbye to friends and knowing he's on his way to another plane. He also, in case you hadn't heard, donated $100,000 to Veterans for Peace.
No, that's fabulous.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So Dan, you get the last word.
Just wanted to say when you mentioned the students and student encampment that I've recommended a film called The Palestine Exception, which is about the student encampment, and it was produced by a friend of mine, Professor Janice Hawken, and she actually just showed the film also in Duke University. We had when they first showed it here in Portland, it was it took up 2 theaters to be able to get everybody in. But it's actually going to be shown on the February 26th at the Cinema 21 downtown Portland. And so I'm promoting that also, which is so people really pay attention because this is the McCarthy era against these students.
Right. It's all over again.
Okay.
Same thing. That's what
Great.
got me in
So
the movement. The students at Columbia in 1968 with Vietnam, that got me off my chair. I was like 30 years old. I better do something.
okay. So we're at 95 minutes now, a little over time. So Rachel, please make it quick, whatever you got.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about Ken. Dan was with us. We were one of, among those 10 delegations to Okinawa in 2015. And out of our group activities, Ken asked me to take to home where he used to live as an officer when he was stationed in Okinawa. So we knocked on the door, and we greeted current owner of the house, and she was very nice that welcomed us and let us come in, and I translated between those two, and he was looking at the house. Now thinking of that day, I think that was Ken's sentimental journey, 2015. I thought he would come with us many more times, but I'm so sorry to, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not
he's 80. He's
deal
going to
with
be
it.
88. He's almost 88. He's had a really good run, and what an amazing guy. So thank you all for another wonderful No
Thank
Nukes
you.
meeting, and keep up all your great work. And we'll follow up on all the things we talked about today. And I'll let you know soon. We'll definitely nail down that date for the webinar with KJ No and Norman Solomon. And happy Friday.
Yep.
Thank you. Good night.
You.
You. Well, he left. Okay, bye.